Aloha, welcome to the Mr.G podcast. Today is Friday, it's episode 5. This is the first week of what I consider to be a very successful start. I really enjoy doing this. I love the podcast, I love learning about it. I've come a long way since day one, and each day I try to improve just like I do in life. Mainly, I've just been talking about basketball, but the podcast isn't necessarily about basketball. It's about anything that I feel like talking about. The most successful podcast in recent history, the Joe Rogan Experience. He started off talking about sports, fighting, and he did that probably a lot of times when he didn't have other things to talk about or he didn't want to talk about other things. I find myself, as this podcast has started off, talking about basketball, which is completely fine because I'm very knowledgeable about basketball. Today's Friday, so we'll try to keep it lighter and not talk hoops as much as I have on Monday. I don't even consider that an episode. I was just figuring out how to run the camera on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's when I actually started figuring out, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk for 20 minutes. Um, I'm going to give my opinion on different things. And then later, I'm going to upload that to the different podcast networks like Spotify podcasts, Amazon podcasts, and they have it arranged so it's really easy just to record your podcast. Of course, use a decent microphone, decent camera, and have it uploaded to those different platforms. So you can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, I would suggest. That's the easiest to find. Mr.G, Gregory, Brandt, Mr.G, Hawaii. There's a few Mr.Gs. I'm sure you can find which one am I. And it's really easy to upload them on Twitter as well. My good friend Elon Musk, a couple days before I started the podcast, he's like, "Hey, Mr. G, I know you're going to want to upload your podcast somewhere." So now everybody with a blue check mark on Twitter can upload up to 2 megabytes, 2 gigabytes, up to 2 hours of footage on YouTube on Twitter, and that's a game changer because you can't even upload 2 hours. I don't think on YouTube. Maybe you can. I don't know. But on most platforms and on the history of social media, you haven't been able to upload things that long. What that does is people can, like me, can upload their podcast immediately onto Twitter. So that's what I'm doing every day. If you want to see the whole podcast, not just listen to it, that's the best way to go straight to Twitter. And that's the first place that I upload as well. So, talk hoops just for a second. The Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, and the Miami Heat, and Bam Adebayo, and the other great players that they have. Uh, they pulled off another upset victory at the Boston Garden in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And they went up 0-2, a number 8 seed and a number 2 seed being Boston. Who would have predicted that? Well, I predicted that. If you listened to some earlier episodes, yesterday's episode when I'm talking about the game, and I'm talking about betting on basketball, normally if the road team wins game 1 in a best of 7 series in the NBA playoffs, you want to put money on the home team for game 2 because the road team will normally take their foot off the gas in game 1 or in game 2 after winning the very tough road game. And the team with home court advantage is not likely to go down 0-2. So the team with home court is normally going to be favored a lot in that game. So I imagine in game 2, the Celtics were heavily favored in yesterday's game over the Heat, which the Heat ended up winning. But if you listen to yesterday's podcast, I said normally, like I said, that's one of the best bets in sports. You in the NBA playoffs, you bet on game 2 of a best of 7 series. If the team with home court advantage loses game 1 at home, then you bet on them to cover whatever spread in game 2. And it's some crazy statistic, like 90% of the time they actually cover. But like I said yesterday, would have been different. You wouldn't want to put money. The best thing that I would have done if I had money to bet was I would have put it on the money line on the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, knowing their team and knowing his mentality and how that's contagious onto the whole team. Because he's not just the best player on the team, he's the leader of the team, and he's a great leader as well, just like his father, Michael Jordan, was. But Jimmy Butler is a great leader. Like I said, he has the greatest story I've heard of where he came from and everything that he had to get through to get to where he is today. And he never stopped believing in himself. But I've went over that earlier in the week. But as far as yesterday's prediction of the game goes, I told you don't play them out. They're on house money. They're playing on borrowed time. They're the number 8 seed. They barely made it to the number 8 seed. They lost one play-in game and they won the second playing game to get the number 8 seed. And then they had to play on house money. They were just happy to be in the playoffs. And then they eliminated the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. And then they eliminated the New York Knicks, their heated rival, in the second round. And they're still on house money, but they want to go all the way. Now that they've won the first 2 games in the Boston Garden, they have a great chance of doing that. I've made lots of predictions on betting on basketball, and I've made lots of money. And you can check my record as well. Last year at this time, I think I made $500 to $1,000 betting on the Heat, or just betting on the playoffs in general. Like I said, there's a lot of different tricks. I've been watching basketball for like 35 years. I took 3 years off from 2020, 2021, 2022, 2020. And this is the first year that I started watching it again in the playoffs last year, but this is the first year that I've been watching the playoffs almost every night. And a lot of people stopped watching in 2020, including Phil Jackson recently did an interview, and how it became so political and it became more than a game. There was so many distractions, not just the names in the back of the players, not just the political symbols on the courts for, like, political causes that turns out to not necessarily be the most legitimate. And the TV screens and the crowd made it like very crazy, and everything changed in the world after 2020. And I think maybe that was planned, because now we have artificial intelligence and people are ready for even a bigger change. And people didn't get food delivered and groceries delivered as often, and Amazon delivered as often before 2020. At least here in Hawaii, they didn't. So everything changed after that. So having basketball back, and even if it is a mirage in the desert of craziness, it is a good relaxation getaway to some people like to get lost in a book, some people like to get lost in a movie, some people like to kick back and listen to music. When there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, sometimes it's good to sit down and get lost in an NBA basketball game. The NBA slogan used to be NBA, this is drama. And the way the crowd, when they have a full crowd and the court right there, and basketball is the most exciting sport, I think. But yeah, I've been watching it since I was 1989. If you want to know more about me, we'll try to get off hoops a little bit, make it a little bit more universal. So I started watching basketball when I was about 10 years old, I would assume. I was born in 1979, which makes the very end of 1979. Jimmy Carter was president when I was born. I remember. No, I was born in Kerrville, Texas in 1979 with my twin brother. We were the 2 largest babies in the Kerrville hospital. Then we spent some time, a couple years, living with our mom in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, until we were like 4 or 5 years old, and maybe 6, maybe. And then our father got custody, and our mom was in the hospital and on and off for years after that. But being born at that time, I was 10 years old when I started watching basketball, and being born in 79, on earlier charts, I would be considered an early millennial. And then on other charts, I would be considered a Gen X. And so in recent years, they came up with a new term, which combines the Gen X and the millennial, and it's a zennial, right? A zennial, and I'm not even pronouncing that correctly. I'm not Gen X. I'm not a millennial. I'm a zennial. And I went to school. I didn't graduate from the University of Texas until I was 30, but I've always looked a lot younger than I am, including now, right? Then my book is about going to the school, going to that school. Sometimes I like to joke with myself just to not take myself too seriously. So I've been talking like this straight, I don't know how long, 10 minutes. So I'll do a little joke or something, but I'm going to explain myself to you. See, that was for me. That was for me. All right. What was I even talking about? The University of Texas. I went to school. I can read. I know how to do things. No. But yeah, so I'm a Zennial. But when I went to school, I graduated, I was 30. So everybody there was a millennial, because if you look at the statistics on the University of Texas website, 95% of all undergraduates are below the age of 25 there. So I was in the 5%. There aren't even anybody 26, 27, which is young, when you get into life real hardcore. But 28, 29, that's young. I wish I was 28, 29. Most people on this planet do. But as far as an undergraduate at a top state university like the University of Texas, and I imagine other schools, statistics are the same, there are not very many older students, and they stick out like a sore thumb. Maybe there's older graduate students, but if you look at the statistics, and I mentioned the statistics exactly in my book, from the years that I went to school there, 95% of them were over the age of 18, but under the age of 25. And they were even a similar percentage were in the top bracket as far as how much money their parents made. Very few of them were independent. Like I didn't like put down what my parents made. I was, on my own since I was a teenager. I hadn't had parents in years, and not even then. So very few students were in the same position that I was in. But looking at younger than I did, I tried to fit in a little bit. They kind of just thought I was just poorer than everybody else. I couldn't fake that, right? I couldn't wear the nicest clothes or have the nicest shoes and backpacks and laptops and this and that. But I could look younger. And so yeah, I remember one class at the University of Texas when the instructor was like, everybody in here is a millennial. I think everybody at this undergraduate in the school is a millennial. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a millennial. Hey, millennials, how you guys doing? How's that 2000? Remember we were little kids in 2000. I don't remember 9/11. I was too young. But really, I was like, I had a job in an office at that time. But Gen X, those are my older. I have two older siblings that are also twins. They were 4 years older than me, my twin brother. The odds of a woman having two sets of twins is 1 in 700,000. But my mom had two sets of twins, and our sisters were 4 years older than me and my brother. They were total Gen X, right? And so I can see like they even as adults, like they didn't catch on to the internet as fast, and they're like kind of like lost on phones and stuff. I had a huge advantage just being a sponge and not having anybody put their influence on me as a kid. But people, even Gen X people now, even the ones that had parents, they're like, yeah, we were Gen X and they just used to like throw us out on the street, and, we'd be gone for days. We'd have our bikes and our packs, and, we just ride around the whole Southwest. And sometimes we'd go to Canada. Like you hear them all exaggerating. And it wasn't like that, like the only way you could tell if somebody was there is if their bike was parked outside, and we called collect our parents every day, from payphones. There was always shady people. You can hear the Gen Xers just even starting to glamorize their shit. But they're the ones that push cell phones like, ooh, like, but I guess those are the older people. If you see an old person with a cell phone and they're pushing, they're setting off an atomic bomb, they're like, you know millennials, they're like try to move it as fast as they can on their phone. But so I went to school with millennials, you could say, and my older siblings and older people in school, people a few grades older, were total Gen X. So I'm a Zennial, what you would call in between a Gen X and millennial. The Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, I think she's the oldest senator right now. I believe she's actually part of the silent generation. Oh, no, she's the generation right after the greatest generation. So there's very few people like that. If you're in the silent generation, you're in your 90s. If you're from the greatest generation, you're a centurion, I believe. If you were fought in World War II, there aren't many World War II veterans around. And if they are, They're got to be over 100 years old almost, in their late 90s. And so millennials, and then I haven't mentioned Gen Z. They're the most annoying generation, right? I just hate the name Gen Z. It just sounds so upbeat, right? And they're the ones that are like pushing all these like uh from what I can tell, they're the ones that are wanting to change the world and change different policies and make everything inclusive, and they have a superiority complex, but that's nothing compared to the next generation, because the next generation is inherently going to have a superiority complex with the name Gen Alpha. Whoever's coming up with these names, like, what the fuck are you doing? This has got to stop. And it wasn't such a big deal. People didn't like pay attention to these different generations. Now you see so many different memes, so many different videos, TikToks of Gen X. Oh, and I even mentioned baby boomers, right? And everybody's like in a category. And so I'm really proud of the category I'm in. It's the rarest category, and sometimes it's not even on the chart, the Zennial. But the next generation, the kids growing up now, because I guess Gen Z, they're entering college. Some might be graduating college. The oldest members of Gen Z, they're still younger members of Gen Z in high school, I imagine. But the next generation and kids right now are Gen Alpha. So like they're like I said, inherently going to have a superiority complex. Like Gen Z is supposed to take the world. It's going to change the world. I don't know. Maybe they're going to have to go to war with Gen Alpha. And as if history repeats itself, the previous generation always dislikes the next generation the most. So I'm not sure how millennials feel about Gen Z. I think personally, I get millennials. I don't have anything bad to say. One thing my grandmother used to say: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that's a piece of advice that I have not been able to follow in my life at all. Also, forgive and forget is something that like I just can't seem to get into my head. But forgive and forget, I can forget even trying to remember that. But if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That I think that is a fitting expression if somebody uh, experiences a hardship or has something bad happen to them, even if there's somebody that you're not fond of. You don't at certain times, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But other times, most times, you don't want to hold your breath. And if you look at people on their deathbeds, they don't regret what they did do. They regret not doing what they wanted to do or not saying what they wanted to say. Hey, and that brings me back to today's podcast, episode 5. Thank you for watching. We're not ending it here. We'll be on a few more minutes, but I really enjoyed this week. I really enjoy doing this every day. Just starting off at 20 minutes a day, and it's fun. It's something I should have thought of years ago, but it is what it is. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm still doing my cat feeding operation every day, and I'm still working on other projects. But this is something that I feel I'm good at. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I'm going to continue doing it every day as well. I've also been reading chapters of my book, Gonzo Education, which is available on Amazon right now for $16.99. That's been going really good using this nice mic. I'm not reading the whole chapter each day. I read about half of the chapter. I've only read chapter 1 and chapter 2. And that's really good way to get my book out there, because I've read it before with shitty mics on a shitty phone. But why would anybody listen to that when they could listen to it on a good mic, with the writer actually reading what he wrote and speaking clearly and answering any questions even. So we'll get to that point too. The next book is going to be available within the next year. So yeah, but back to sports. Today's Friday. It's Aloha Friday here in Hawaii. Every Friday is Aloha Friday. There is a basketball game today. The Lakers are hosting the Denver Nuggets at the Staples Center. And last round, when the Lakers played the Golden State Warriors, courtside seats at the Staples Center were selling for about $30,000, $40,000. Elon Musk, he'd never been to a basketball game. He was in Los Angeles, so I sent him a tweet. I'm like, hey, there's two seats left, and they're $40,000 each. And then I look on the broadcast watching here from Hawaii, and Elon Musk is sitting right there courtside. So Elon, I know you like my advice. If you need anything else, just give me a call. Uh, you know my number. You know everybody's phone number. Uh, but yeah, so courtside seats were going for $40,000 the last round. I would imagine they're going for $50,000 each for two, $100,000 for both. That's something, right? And from my perspective, I would never drive a $100,000 car. I would rather get a $50,000 car and give the 50,000 other 50,000 that I would use to charity or something, right? But something like that is a little bit different. And at least with the $100,000 car, you have the car. You know, the car's not going where you can park it in your driveway, you keep it in your garage. You can live in your fucking car if the shit hits the fan, right? But with two courtside seats for, you know, let's just say 30,000 each. They were more expensive in the last round, but let's say since it's the Nuggets, they're not as expensive. Or let's just say $25,000 each, which is typical for a playoff game. So $50,000, and the basketball game is 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You know, and you get there fashionably late, like the courtside people seem to do. And maybe it's a blowout and you leave a little bit early. So you're paying $50,000 for 2 hours. So that's $25,000 an hour. So there's 4 quarters in an hour. So 4 divided by 25,000 is about 8. So that's 8,000 every 15 minutes. So you're roughly paying how much per minute? You're paying like $500 per minute, per second, or something crazy like that. I don't know. I'm not doing the math right now, but if you look at how much you're paying like, you know, so much money, $100,000 for 2 hours. Like it's such an incredible amount of money when you think of it like that, and you're like, wow, I feed street cats every day, so with $100,000 I could feed, you know, the 2 million homeless street cats we have in Hawaii. You know, I could give them each one can of food, or I could feed my colony every day for a few years with that money. But you know, people, you see all the people at courtside. So if you're watching the basketball game, and about 10 million people are going to be watching it, or almost that, around the world, maybe 3 million. But you see the people sitting courtside and how much they paid for those seats. And I don't know if I could sit there with you know, it's tempting. I think that I see Jack Nicholson sitting courtside. I'm like, wow, I'd like to sit there. That's something that I might actually pay for. But you consider all the people dying of fathom, you know, starvation and disease across the planet, and there are people that are dying of starvation and disease across the planet every day. I couldn't sit there with a clear conscience and you know, watch the basketball game if paying, knowing that those seats cost that much money. I have sat courtside at a Spurs game, Spurs versus Atlanta Hawks, a regular season game, but somebody gave me those tickets, and I don't think anywhere else in the United States, maybe except for Madison Square Garden, has courtside seats that are so expensive. And I don't know, why don't, you know, you say like, oh, I'm such a great person. I'm like, I guess, you know, the celebrities, they do help a lot of people and they do give a lot of money to charity, but how much is enough, you know? And they can't help everybody. And you can't, you know, give money, you can't give away your whole fortune to everybody. And somebody has to sit there courtside watching the Lakers. So hey, if not me, some other guy, some other schmuck be sitting here. That's one way to look at it. Or I deserve this, I've worked hard, I deserve this, is another way to look at it. uh like I said, you'll never see me driving $100,000 car, even if I'm a multi-millionaire, billionaire. Like, oh, that would never happen. Well, if it ever fucking did, I still would not drive an expensive car. drive a medium priced, somewhat expensive car, and the rest of the money could be good in a useful other way. But something like courtside with the Lakers, that's something that I would want to do. But considering, like I said, all the different things going on in the world, but like I said, celebrities and famous people and wealthy people, I should say, it's not their responsibility to feed every hungry person on the planet. It's not their responsibility to cure every curable disease, because millions of people die every year of curable diseases, like the flu or diarrhea, or very in third world countries, that people just die because they don't have access to medication. So with that being said, that's where I come to from the perspective, if you want to solve a problem anytime in life, and you have a bunch of a lot of different people, you have to work together. And you can't have factions, you can't have different groups not talking to people, you can't have people going to war. So in my mind, if you want to make the world a better place than it was when you got here, and everybody has a limited time. So I would believe that in my political ideas is really different than anybody else's, and hardly anybody would agree with me. But the best way is to work together. So it is possible to solve starvation on this planet overnight. It's possible to solve uh, easily curable diseases overnight. It's possible to solve homelessness overnight. But you know what the only way would be? The only way would be to eliminate all borders. The only way would be to get all the smartest people, all the best leaders in the country, and come together and create a one world government. The best way would be to guarantee everybody on this planet that nobody's going to starve, nobody's going to die from a curable disease, and everybody's going to have a roof over their head. And if they did that for everybody, oh wait, we're live right now, Jamie. But and if everybody did that, then the whole world, you could, in one generation, Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, in one generation, you could solve all of the world's problems. And that generation would be known, sorry, Dianne Feinstein, as the greatest generation, that solved so many problems in the world. And you could also take all of the nuclear bombs, since there's only one world country, and get rid of all the nuclear bombs. They're totally unnecessary. And then, hey, maybe the aliens will be so happy, they'll be so proud of us, they'll invite us, they'll give us a special invitation to be official members of the Galactic Federation, which is my overall goal in life. Is I'd like to see this planet a member of the the Milky Way Galactic Federation, and Carl Sagan would be proud. With that, I'll go ahead end the show here. I hope you enjoyed these week's episodes. We'll try to do some more stuff on Friday or on Saturday this weekend. And everybody, have a great day. Aloha. Shoots.